Hello, welcome to May 2nd, 2022. This is the Good Life Meditation, something that I do every morning to remember my principles and my objectives and to see how I did applying these last night, and to plan for today. Ooh, man, I need a sip of coffee. I had a rough night. I wouldn't go so far as to say my night panic is back, but definitely, so last night was an intense night of thinking. I was, I long had a trouble staying asleep. I go to sleep right away, but I always seem to wake up. Hi, Rudy. I always seem to wake up an hour and a half before the alarm, and think. That's been, at least for the last 6 months, that's been the case. Just think mostly about work. Used to be, before this current job, with my last job, I would wake up and panic. Dare I say, panic attacks at times. I mean, it was bad at times. I literally, hyperventilating, mumbling to myself, talking out loud. It was awful. It was terrible. And it was all work. I would go through scenarios in my mind. I would play out situations of my projects, how they would go south and go bad, and what I was going to do, and how could I possibly, and I would try to contrive some escape, and there was no escape, right? So now it never went that. I never thought about suicide or anything like that. Nothing that bad. I mean, I've had times in my life that I've considered that. That was in my early 30s. Real rough patch then. But I have had situations in like about a year or so ago, where I would wish that I wasn't alive, so I wouldn't have to face these problems. Wouldn't it be just better to not be here anymore? That kind of wish, just to shut things down. Not a wish to die, not a wish to kill myself, but a wish to just not be here anymore. Which I think is different from being suicidal. In any case, all this stuff, my life is a blessed, fantastic life by all measures. But again, as I've said before, with these things, it's relative, right? The mind knows itself and its own relative understanding. Anyway, for the last 6 months, it's mostly been just being awake, because I got in a habit of getting awake. Last night, though, I was back to my old tricks. It wasn't a panic attack. I wasn't hyperventilating. I wasn't even very upset. I wasn't really upset at all. But I was awake and working through scenarios in my mind. Literally, I have a thing coming up in my job where I'm doing this one project in these phases. And I was working the phase through my mind in full consciousness. I mean, this isn't like twilight sleep. Fully awake, which is very taxing, trying and upsetting to good sleep, when one should be actually, collecting one's energies again, so I don't feel rested. But what's a funny thing was, okay, well, it was more than that. Okay, get this. It was almost like playing with toys, night toys. I can still remember it, even though it was just a half an hour ago. I mean, well, I should say I still remember just half an hour ago. It just sometimes these things, when it's the twilight sleep, you only have impressions. You don't have a good memory. I was picking up one situation at work, one issue, examining it, muttering about it, put it back. Then pick up another issue, examine it, mutter it, put it back over. Here's a risk. Examine it. Maybe I wouldn't have this problem if I had a job that was like a factory job. I just had to, run the stamping machine all day. But then my worries would be different. But get this. At one point last night, this morning, an hour ago, I picked up a worry from my old job. Now it's a situation that I know that I left one project. I stayed at that old job until my projects were done because I had made a commitment to do that. But the one project was going to be done in 3 phases, so I stayed to the end of the completion of the first phase, so I could then hand over the second phase to somebody else. And I know some of the deliverables that they have. I found myself last night worrying about those. I was worried about deliverables for a project that I'm no longer the project manager, for a job which is no longer mine, and for an organization that I'm no longer connected to. What is up with that? So clearly there's something going on in my head that I trained myself with my last job to worry. Probably because I did have very legitimate worries at one point. The stuff that was, making me wish I wasn't alive. Those were some serious worries. That was some scary stuff. And that trained me to spend the last hour of the night awake and thinking. And I really haven't been able to get out of that ever since. But why last night? Why was I was muttering to myself under my breath. I remember because I was worried Yumiko was going to wake Yumiko. I was muttering to myself. What is it about those pre-dawn hours? I'll need to think about it some more. Okay, otherwise, how did yesterday go? It was a good day. It was a nice full day off. Yumiko and I went out and we went out to get bagels. And I had a moment where I had to employ the principles of the nature of things. I had to do that. Bullseye aim. That was probably it. Yumiko suggested bagels, so we went to our local Panera, which we think is the only place you can get bagels around here. And we got in there. We were standing in the line, and they've got all the breads out there open. And while we were standing there, we noticed a big, black, ugly fly flying around, landing on the bagels. Dunk, dunk. And Yumiko and I just looked at each other and decided, let's go somewhere else. So that was the principle of the nature of things, right? One is the trick is then to not get upset about it, but just to like a kung fu expert, it's the nature of things. Flies get in stores and they fly around looking for stuff to land on and do their thing on. And then the bullseye aim, it was the next part because we went to find another bagel place. It turns out there's no bagel places anywhere nearby. The nearest one is like in Temecula. But we did find a place that was there on Yelp. They were listed as donuts and bagels in about 7 miles away in Murrieta. We went there and it turned out that was just a standard old donut shop. They didn't even have any bagels listed, but apparently they had some in back. We asked, and so we got some. And I bet those bagels just came out of a bag. They didn't seem. That's the bullseye aim part, striving for the mark, missing the mark. So we settled on those, and they were okay. To me, they were fine. Yumiko's got higher standards. And then after that, we went home. I went out and did a little more shopping. I forgot that we needed some dog food. Excuse me. And I got a lot of reading done. I did like 35 pages. It was a good day. So how did I do with my criteria? Did I make a video today or yesterday? Yes, I did. Did I write in my journal? Yes, I did. Did I read? Yes, lots of reading. So I get a circle for Sunday. Okay, let's go on and do the good life now. 7 objectives and 30 principles as follows. The 7 objectives are, number 1, to be always ready to die, to have my life in order, ready to go. 2, to make good and effective use of my time, to not let my days slip through my fingers. 3, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. 4, to cultivate good emotional reactions so that I'm not flying off the handle. 5, to perform good actions, just to do good things throughout the day. 6, to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. 7, to do just one thing at a time and to do that thing slowly and deliberately in a very considered manner. Now, what are the principles that I use to achieve these objectives? They are, number 1, the principle of war, to always be fighting against what I think is true and what others propose is true, to do my due diligence in examining ideas. 2, reason and the subprinciples of honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which is the attitude and frame of mind that I take in approaching the world and in executing the aforementioned war. 3, the homunculus, the suggestion that I do not have a soul, but I do apparently have a consciousness that I'll get to have for some time while I'm still alive. 4, the Anchorhold, the suggestion that the homunculus is trapped inside my head. It can never get out. It can never really connect with anybody else, no matter how close I am to them. And it will not survive my death. 5, purpose. The 3 purposes in my life are to be a good husband and father. I call this biology. To be a virtuous human being, seeking after the well-being of others and myself. And then mission, to share my good life creed and the story of going alone. 6, the atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing and forever transforming. So too you and me. 7, the nature, the principle of nature, that is. Everything has some particular way that it is, some nature. And if I can identify that, then it won't surprise me, and I can abide it better, or at least work around it. And then comes the pirate ride. Free will is a very convincing illusion. We think that we're in control of our choices, and we do get to make the choices, but whatever choices we make are influenced by the circumstance and all the universe around us, nudging us one way or another, and pressing our hand towards whatever decision we ultimately make, which was the only choice that we seemingly could have made. Not predestiny, but just being a part of a larger whole. Next comes maturity and the subprinciples of wisdom and fortitude. We are mature when we wisely recall our past and plan for a better future. Leverage our experience for a better future. The social principle. Human beings are social creatures We need one another to survive well, and our best ends are social ends. Public speaking. To be very careful about what I say and what I write, and to use my language carefully, well-chosen words, appropriate words, and to never, ever, ever gossip. Next comes temperance, to be controlling of my consumption, to live a simple life, to understand that control means that sometimes I'll have to suffer when I deny myself what I want, and to be prepared to apply apathy to things that are outside of my control, beyond me, beyond my influence and touch. Maybe have some influence, but maybe not much. Maybe not enough to warrant a sense of engagement. Next comes the horror show. Life is really a terrible place, chock full of horror, where we get an opportunity to help relieve that horror. And that's a very fulfilling thing. But I have to remember the horror and then be a part of the solution. Next comes, excuse me, see, I didn't sleep well. That which must be borne, that which has to be carried, which is the fact of the horror show and the responsibilities that we've assumed in our life and taken on as our own. Then comes the Feast of Offal, which is what happens when we get upset and spew our upset into the world. I would rather control that and not soil other people with my upset. Likewise, when other people are attempting to soil others with their upset, I'll stand clear, but I'll be there with a towel and a hug if they need so afterwards. Next comes two principles: distraction and agency in the great indifference. Distraction is what we do so we don't have to see the apparent emptiness of the universe. A universe without God. We don't want to see that, for the most part, because it's scary to realize we're on our own. Then comes the best seat in the house. To not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing right now. And then the Path of Wildness, which is a way forward into new life, by creating new life out of the safe and the sane that we're in now. Having the courage to make decisions and being prepared to be wrong and suffer the consequences. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk. Life has the surface level risks of security, education, family, career, security for old age, and then the deep risk of not finding ourselves if we're so inclined. Highly recommend not attacking, but approaching both of those aims. First, begin with the education, then take a deep effort to find oneself, and then come back and begin pursuing the rest. You can really have it all, but it's difficult to do it all if you do it kind of out of order. The hardest is the two hardest are to find ourselves in old age and find security in old age. Because once we're old, we can miss the boat. Right? We either wind up old and seemingly lost, or old and having been found but with no security and having to work till the end of our days. It's tough to mitigate those. The first one's the toughest. Okay. So next is sin and damnation. Sin and damnation. I said that fast. And there are 7 subprinciples: suffering, simplicity, No, sorry. Falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, and gossip, which is basically being untrue, believing things that are untrue, or talking about others behind their back. And the consequence of all these things is damnation in the here and now. So I try to avoid all of those. Next comes complete oblivion. After we're dead, there's no final reunion with the ones we love because there's no afterlife. If there's no final reunion, there'll be no chance for reconciliation, nor any chance for final justice, because we'll be gone. Next comes the great life adventure. So do those things now, right? Seek after those things now before death. Next, the great life adventure. One or more centerpiece experiences that kind of becomes our treasure. The thing, like those old Vietnam vets or veterans of every sort that will wear a cap and say, Marine veteran. It's their story. They're a veteran, or they were a football star, or whatever the case may be. It's good to have a story, an identity. Oh, I forgot to turn that light on. It looks a little dim over there. Okay, next is the season of philosophy, which is a time to record what we've learned along the way. Have the pen and paper ready. I was reading yesterday in Boswell's Life of Johnson an interesting anecdote. That, of course, that's very politically incorrect in many of the things they say, because it's 250 years ago. But they were talking about the importance of writing in a journal, and there were two comments. One said that writing in a journal. Okay, the way it went was, just as a looking glass is an opportunity for women. Women enjoy checking themselves in a looking glass, in a mirror, to adjust their appearance. Just as men like to tune their mind by reviewing their journals or diary. I butchered it, but you get the sentiment, right? Now we wouldn't use such coarse imagery of women and women's vanity, admiring themselves in the mirror, and men alone being interested in the mind. We would share that amongst the sexes. But it's an interesting idea that a journal is similar, is a review of the mind. He said it better in the book. So season of philosophy, write them down. And then the bullseye aim, we strive to hit the target, but usually miss. Then the uphill climb, life is a steady trudge up, up, up. And then after the uphill climb, arena and utility, life is an arena. And if we practice these, remembering our principles regularly, they will be at our side, ready to use as needed. And then nothing is enough, a reminder to try to get by with less. I hear the snoring dog. And then lastly, the principle of fun and the sub-principles of hope and retrospect. A reminder to enjoy the day, also enjoy anticipating the next day, and then remembering yesterday. Okay, that's my good life meditation, my good life creed. Now let's plan for the day. I only have a few meetings. I do have one really important meeting with the big boss, a one-on-one with the new big boss. I'm not worried about that. That'll go fine. Why am I anxious about it? Why am I anxious? I think it's because we've turned, you know what it is? It's because we turned a corner into May. And our big go live is just after, after we turn the corner into June. That's why, because I'm in the final stretch. That's why I was up last night. I was awake because I take my job seriously. It's important to me. my job, to do a good job, requires my diligence and attention. So now I understand. That's why I was awake. Because I care. If I didn't care, I would have slept just fine. And things are going to be fine. They're going fine. There's absolutely... And the nature of these, even my big project, the nature of it is not... When I've got that other project, that's probably another reason why. That one's coming up. I can't talk about that one. That's a serious one. Things really go south on that. But I've got total... That's fine too. That one's going to be fine. Kurt, just take it easy. No reason to really worry. There's no reason not to be sleeping. With that, I'll end. Hope you all have a good day. I'm going to do my best. After this, I'll get up. I'll go read the Bible. I think it's Isaiah 29 today. Do my journal. Upload this video. Go downstairs, feed the dogs, feed myself, change my shirt, long sleeves for work, and get started. Be safe, but not too safe.